I'm going to start with uh, Jim Mason, who is a vice president of Homeschool Legal Defense Association in the United States. Jim leads a team of litigators there, and he's been with the organization a long time. So if I can turn it over to Jim. Jim, please tell us your story. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much. Yes, so I'm the vice president. I was hired here 20 years ago to direct our litigation efforts, and over the years, various other aspects of what we do have come under my watchful eye, I guess you'd say. And one of those in recent years has been our fundraising efforts. So let me just give you a quick history of HSLDA. Started in 1983 as a membership organization. We were 100% funded by member dues, and pretty much our entire mission was legal protection and legislative lobbying. And that's about all we did. And we started very small with one full-time employee back in 1983. And that sort of marks the beginning of the homeschool movement in America, really just kind of started getting going then. And I imagine that many of the folks on this webinar, it's probably similar to where you may be in your country today. And you know, the vision that HSLDA's founders had was that by kind of homeschoolers banding together through a membership dues organization, you might not be having an issue in Iowa, but there may be a pretty big issue in North Carolina. And so by banding together, we could send resources, legal protection resources, legislative lobbying to where it was most needed. As homeschooling grew, those first early years were a little shaky, but then suddenly homeschooling started really taking off, and our membership dues pretty much completely financed our organization over the next couple of decades, including with enough funding to be a significant founder of Patrick Henry College, where my offices are. Then some of you may recall back in 2008, 2009, the economy started having a bit of a crash, and suddenly membership dues were not covering all of what we wanted to do. And you know, our mission had grown somewhat past legal protection, and we were getting more into helping homeschoolers in practical ways through we have a number of educational consultants that our folks can call and get help with their special needs kids or preparing their kids for college, that sort of thing. And so in addition to our membership dues, we began raising money, and we called it the Homeschool Freedom Fund. And it was kind of organized around our litigation efforts, the cases we were doing. And the way we started, so this is, you know, this is, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend this, but because we had such a long history of only membership dues and we were not a donation-based organization, there was a feeling that, you know, if you depend on donations, those can go up and down. Membership dues stayed pretty steady. So we had a little bit of a cultural, you know, aversion to getting into the donation world. But we had a lot of followers, we had a lot of members, and I suggested that, hey, you know, some of these people would be willing and actually cheerfully eager to support our mission beyond their annual membership dues. And so we dipped our toes in the water and put a donate button on our webpage. And that was the first thing we did. And without any marketing at all, without really any effort on our part, donations started coming in. And so that kind of affirmed for us that, you know, the homeschool movement really supports our efforts, and growing the homeschool movement resonated with people. So over the years, we became more formal and more purposeful in our fundraising efforts. apart from our membership dues. And a parallel track, about 15 years ago, a donor came to us and said, I want to help widows continue to be able to homeschool. And we didn't really have a way to do much with that. So we created a second organization that we called the Homeschool Foundation. And we took in that first donation to help widows. And kind of as a little bit of a part-time gig, actually, we started raising money separately for that charitable purpose of helping homeschoolers who needed a little extra funding. And so these two parallel tracks were happening at the same time, and each of them was growing with really kind of only part-time work on them. And then about 5 years ago, all of that fundraising was placed under my supervision, and we merged the two organizations. And so now HSLDA takes donations for the cause and donations for the charitable purpose of helping homeschoolers in need. And I have to tell you, I mean, it's just been amazing. We like to think of it as, you know, HSLDA has kind of the justice side and the mercy side, the compassionate side. And those two messages really resonate well with our audience. So what I've learned in the 5 years that I've been kind of overseeing all of this is that people really support the homeschool movement in a real visceral way. It's a cause that people get behind, whether it's helping in the legal arena or helping families who need help. And the best things that we do is just tell the true stories of what's happening out there. And, you know, our storytelling, I believe, has improved enormously over the last few years as we become more purposeful. We started collecting stories. So little things that that you may not even, you know, people send you an email and, oh, thank you for this and this. And you don't think much about it, but behind that, there's a really good story. And so we started collecting the stories and developing the stories and sending the stories out to our folks. And that's what really attracts, you know, you can almost tell when there's a really good story that we put out through an email, we'll get, you know, a really terrific response. And right now in the country, in our country anyway, education is hot. Parental rights are hot. I mean, it's on the front pages. It's in the news all the time. And so part of what we're doing is trying to expand what we do to meet this moment. You know, because of the pandemic, hundreds of thousands of new families are not just joining homeschooling, but you know, they're deciding to stick with it. And that's been our mission, is to help people make the transition because of COVID, and then help them really experience the joy of homeschooling. So we've started, you know, doing a lot of outreach kind of communications to those people, and our traditional supporters. That's really resonated with them, that they could be helping this whole new generation of, you know, this tremendous growth in the homeschooling movement. And as we tell the stories of people who have made that transition, the traditional homeschoolers are really responding well to that. There's kind of three, let me just close with this. There are three things that we try to do in our general communications and in our specific communications as well. And that is people, for people to act. You know, what you want is people to know what you're doing, and you want them to act. You want them to side with your mission and write you a check. And so what we have to communicate for people to be willing to act is there's a dissatisfaction with the current state of affairs. So here in America, watching you know, your student parents watching their kids do Zoom classes, or sending their kids to school where they have to wear masks all day, they're dissatisfied with the current state of affairs. You have to offer them a vision of a better state. This is where you are now. here's where you could be, the joy of homeschooling, the joy of seeing your kids learn in your own home, the joy of raising, intelligent, creative, interested students. And then you have to show them that there is a way to get there. We have to believe there's a way to get there. So all of our communications, we try to communicate these three things: dissatisfaction with the current state of affairs, a vision of a better state, and a belief that you can get there. And that resonates with our donors because they see that they're helping this new thing. I mean, I feel like this time in our history could be, a new birth of freedom through the homeschool movement. Thanks.